Namaskar. I, Professor Shachi Shah from School of Interdisciplinary and Transdisciplinary Studies, welcome you all in this session of wastewater management. We all know that water is elixir of life. It is not only essential for economic development, it is essential for our livelihood, it is essential for our living. Not only all ecosystems depend upon the water, but also our lives, our livelihood, our health, environment, everything depend upon the water. Water is a biological resource, it is a natural resource. It is available in various forms, whether it is fresh water, whether it is surface water, groundwater, or any other form. There are many ecosystems which are water ecosystem, for example, river, wetland, lakes, ocean, aquifer, etc. And these water system or water ecosystem supports a variety of life. Water is essential for not only for development but also for sustainable development. As water is a scarce resource, we know that there are millions of people worldwide who are not having access to safe drinking water. They are not having access to proper sanitation conditions. There are millions of people who are living in such a conditions that they are not having the clean water, access to clean water. Millions of people, especially kids, they are suffering from various waterborne diseases because of the discharge of large amount of waste into this water. So there are twin challenges. One is that the scarce water resource, how to manage this scarce water resource, and then second, the providing or providing the accessibility of this scarce resource to each and everyone. My dear learner, the solution of this problem, one of the solution I will say, is the use of wastewater. We are living in an economy which is bio-based economy, we can say, or we are aiming for a circular economy. Circular economy where waste is also considered as wealth, where the water, wastewater can be reused, can be recycled, and after the treatment, it can be used for various purposes, if not for drinking purpose, but for irrigation purpose, for industrial purpose, for fisheries, for livestock, and other construction and management and other works. So in this session, I will be discussing about water, how it is distributed, what are the problem, and how this wastewater management can be used as a tool in circular economy, can be used as a source of wealth and provide the tool for achieving the sustainable development goal 6, which basically deals with the sustainable management of water and sanitation for all. So to begin with, we know that water is we require water for various purposes, whether it is agriculture, irrigation, livestock, fisheries, it all comes under agriculture, or domestic purpose, in our kitchen, in our bathrooms, in for our laundries, and for our daily use purpose. Industries purpose, various type of industry, whether it is pharmaceutical industry, textile industry, iron and ore industry, and so on and so forth. These all require water. Beside that, water is essential for food and energy conversation. It is essential for other activities. So, this is elixir of life. But water is a scarce resource. We are polluting the water. This water, as it is not equally distributed, it is there is differences in spatial and temporal distribution of water. So one way there is water which is people are wasting the water in various activities, and there are areas where water is not available. Water pollution is a very cause of concern for each and everyone. I'll not give an example of water pollution, but we know that various type of waterborne diseases, whether it is cholera, diarrhea, and other, these are occurring on a very large scale. The agriculture use large amount of water, especially in India, and this agriculture wastewater through runoff, it goes to our rivers, where it causes various type of pollution, because of fertilizer, either because of nitrate or phosphorus. This is responsible for eutrophication. The industrial wastewater, especially I'll mention the pharmaceutical industries, because after the COVID-19, we know about antimicrobial resistance. These pharmaceutical companies, they are discharging large amount of antibiotic into the water. That's why it is the antimicrobial resistance is developing. This pollution is also responsible for the food chain. This is going into there is biomagnification of various type of pollutant, and this biomagnification is coming to the food chain. Likewise, there are various type of toxic compound, whether it is heavy metal, for example cadmium and chromium. These are causing various type of problem to human being. So there are lot of problem which are associated due to this wastewater, which is without treatment going into our river bodies, which is going to our ocean, and it is causing large amount of problem. So this wastewater, if we define the wastewater, wastewater can be defined as the water which cannot be used for our purposes, which is having Central Pollution Control Board has given the threshold or given the permissible limit of certain compound or certain parameter, that if it is beyond that parameters, it is considered as wastewater. For example, if it is having high biological oxygen demand, or having high chemical oxygen demand, or it is rich in organic compound, volatile organic compound, some toxic compound, and so on and so forth. So this wastewater is ultimately goes to river, causing a river pollution or water pollution. When we talk about the distribution of water, water is very little amount of water is available for us as a resource. If you see, 97% of the water is in the ocean. It is saline water, it is having high salt concentration, and this water is not potable water, it is unfit for our daily consumption. Out of this, only 3% water is available as fresh water, and this fresh water is also 29% water is underground water, and 70% water is locked in polar ice caps and glacier. So less than 1% of the water is available to us. So if we divide the water, water can be surface water or groundwater. Surface water is found in the surface of the earth. It is in the river, lakes, bays, and it is found on the surface. The water, surface water, again it can be lentic water or lotic water. Lentic water is the water which is stagnant, and lotic water which is running water. For example, lentic water, when we talk about lentic water, it is found in the lakes, wetlands. Lotic water is river water, which is running water. The kind of dissolved oxygen present defines the water. For example, river water will be having high amount of dissolved oxygen. So if we are discharging certain amount of waste water into the river, due to its inherent capability of cleaning itself, it can cause and also due to dilution, the amount of pollutant will be less. But if we are discharging the wastewater into lakes, because of decrease in dissolved oxygen, ultimately through the process of eutrophication or other process, it will ultimately lead to the several type of waste related problem. So the second kind of water is groundwater. So groundwater, it originate from precipitation. It sink into the ground from the surface to the water table. We know about the hydrological cycle. There is process of evaporation, precipitation, and transpiration. So, through the process of precipitation, water comes down into the surface, it comes into the ocean, and through the process of evaporation, it again goes into the atmosphere, and through this process, evaporation and precipitation, the hydrological cycle completes. So, after the precipitation, the water goes into the water table and it forms the groundwater. It occurs in the open spaces between silt, sand, and gravels, and it goes into the natural fractures in the rocks. So it is invisible. This groundwater is hidden from our eyes. But the groundwater is responsible for most of our activities, whether it is recharge of the rivers or extraction of water for agriculture purpose, for industry purpose, or other purpose. As I was telling you about the water pollution into the river, there is the water which is in the surface water. The water quality is more deteriorated because directly wastewater is goes into the rivers. But as far as groundwater is concerned, the water quality parameters of groundwater need to be better than the surface water, because once the groundwater is contaminated, it is very difficult to clean the groundwater, and it will be lead to serious health havoc. Now, coming to the types of water, when we are talking about the wastewater, the what kind of water is considered as wastewater, and what will be the treatment strategy when we are using this wastewater for our daily purpose. The water can be divided into, based on its color, blue water, green water, gray water, and black water. Blue water is the water which is clean water, which is fresh water, which is available for irrigation, which we use for our drinking purpose, which we use for our household purpose. It is blue water. Green water, as a name indicate, it is the water which is found into the plants. It is found in the vegetations. So this water is again, because it is in the vegetation, so it is again not available for us for using it for our purpose. The third type of water is the gray water. As the name indicate, gray water is the waste water which comes from our kitchen, which comes from our domestic use. It is water which is free from sewage. It is water which where the sewage waste is not mixed. So this gray water is having high potential that it can be used after treatment for our purpose, for our daily purpose, or for our specific purpose of industries, for irrigation, for fisheries, for livestock, for other use. Black water is the water which is mixed with sewage. It is having high organic load. It is because of high mixing of sewage waste, which is included urine, feces, and other things. It is having high amount of microorganism, disease causing organism, pathogenic organism. So if we are using this black water or sewage water for our after treatment, we require specific treatment. So management of this black water, the management of gray water, they all require different infrastructure, different treatment process, and different technological aspects if we wanted to use this wastewater for our for certain specific purpose. Now, coming to the water scarcity. Water scarcity is when there is demand is more and the supply of available water is less. This is called water scarcity. We are experiencing a water scarce condition. There are many cities in India which are facing this water scarcity condition. The Niti Aayog has published a report in 2018 where 20 of countries of India, they are under water stress. They are having water scarce condition. There are many countries in the world, they are facing the water scarce condition, and there are countries where there may be a zero day, zero water day, the day where they will water not be available for a day in the pipes. That is the policy of certain government in certain countries. So if we talk about the main dimensions of water scarcity, the main dimensions are a physical lack of water availability to satisfy the demand. The water is unavailable physically, there is less fresh water available. The second dimension is that the water is available, but there is lack of infrastructure, there is lack of policy, there is lack of government support for distribution, for storage and access of this water. And third one is that there is lack of institutional capacity to provide the necessary water services. There are many factors which are involved when we say that water scarcity is there. The first is water stress, the second is water shortage or deficit, and third one is water crisis. But all these water scarcity condition, whether these arise because of distribution, because of storage, because of institutional capacity, or because of uh, any other mean, because of lack of spatial and temporal distribution of water, or any climatic condition, these all conditions ultimately leads to the deterioration of environment. It ultimately leads to the condition where the the environment is not conducible for living. It is lead to storage, it leads to the food, ultimately the deterioration of food quality, distribution of food quality, and it will affect the economic development as well as sustainable development. There are various dimensions, as we have discussed. There may be physical scarcity, there may be economic water scarcity. The physical scarcity, inadequate natural water resource to supply a region or demand, and economic water scarcity, where countries, where areas where the water is poorly managed and the water, though the water is sufficient. I would like to share few of the fact which few of the international reports they have published regarding the water availability. In United Nations report in 2018, it is published that over 2 billion people live in countries experiencing high water stress. Global Water Institute 2013 published that 700 million people worldwide could be displaced by intense water scarcity. And we know that climate change is doubling this threat. It is also a driver which is pushing the water scarcity, and it is also leading the migration or displacement of the people because of this water scarcity. We have seen, we have witnessed the growth of urban areas. People from rural areas, they are migrating to urban area, and water scarcity, and because of that associated livelihood, this is also one of the reason. WMI in 2018, it has published that 21 major cities in India are racing to reach zero groundwater level by 2020. So it can affect almost 100 million people. When we talk about Indian scenario, I have already shared with you that it is one of the water scarce country. It is second populous country, but it is 46th highest risk country in the world. 11 of India's 20 largest cities, they are facing the water crisis. They are in high risk category. Delhi, Chennai, Mumbai, Karnataka, Ahmedabad, Indore, these all are cities which are under tremendous water stress, and they are also reaching towards the climate vulnerability stress. So in this nutshell, I wanted to say that there are many countries as well as many cities in India which are facing the water crisis, water stress condition, and scarcity of water. So we are having a solution that the water which is discharged from various sectors, whether it can be managed, whether it can be treated, so that this scarce resource, this resource can be used in a circular way, in a better way. And how are the process or what are the technology that will be helpful for the treatment of water. Here, I would also like to give you a scenario of urban wastewater and rural wastewater. If you see the statistics, almost in India, 65% of people they live in rural area, around 900 million, and 35%, almost 483 million people, they are concentrated in urban center. If you see the wastewater generation in rural region, it is approximately 39,604 million liters per day. Around, if you see in urban sector, it is estimated 72,368 mld million liters per day, and the data is of 2021. So you can see that the amount of water used in urban area is almost double of that in rural area. There are several reasons. The reasons that we the maybe industry, maybe excess use of water for our household purpose, for our domestic purpose, for our municipal purpose, and the wastage. But the end result is the wastage in urban area. The water which is discharged from urban area is almost double as compared to the rural area. I was telling you about the Sustainable Development Goal 6, which specifically talked about the sustainable management of water. It talks about ensuring availability and sustainable management of water and sanitation for all. And not only this goal, but many other goals are also related with this goal 6, whether it is poverty eradication, food security, gender equality, sustainability of cities and human settlement, combating climate change, and protecting terrestrial ecosystem. So wastewater can be used as a resource. Though this use of this wastewater is untrapped, it is undervalued, but it can be used as a resource. It is there is a need to develop the reliable and cost effective source of wastewater treatment. Especially the water can be used for agriculture purpose, for industrial purpose, and it has enormous potential to fill the demand supply gap. When we are talking about the wastewater treatment can be done in on site or off site. There are certain treatment technologies, there are certain treatment method by which waste can be treated, whether it is STPs, whether it is sewage treatment plant, or whether it is the small pit which we make near our the source of wastewater generation. So if we talk about the sewage wastewater or site sewage off-site sewage wastewater, it is divided into primary treatment, secondary treatment, and tertiary treatment. Primary treatment, basically there are many steps, but the main purpose of primary treatment is the removal of solid waste which is found in the water. For example, there may be leaf, there may be the certain suspended particle, there may be certain cloth, or there may be certain solid compound which before using this wastewater for purposes need to be removed. So the first step is screening. In screening, different type of screens are used. The screens may be coarse, fine, there may be different size of mesh, there may be rod shaped, or any other type of screen can be used which will remove the solid waste which is present into the wastewater. After the screening, the water goes to grit chamber where the grit is removed, where it is settled down and the grit is removed. And the third is sedimentation tanks. In sedimentation tanks, it where the water stays for a certain period of time, the solid particle or the impurities which settle down, and the water now it goes to the secondary treatment. The secondary treatment, basically it's a biological treatment. It may be aerobic treatment, it may be anaerobic treatment. As the name indicate, aerobic treatment is where the aerobic bacteria, they are, or aerobic microorganism, they degrade the organic compound which is present into the wastewater. These microorganisms degrade the organic compound, and the after the removal of this organic compound, this water can be further used, go to secondary treatment depending upon the type of microorganism used, type of technology used, or type of infrastructure that is being used. Likewise, in anaerobic digestion, as the name indicate here, the anaerobic microorganism or the digestion of organic compound takes place in absence of oxygen. These microorganisms act upon the organic waste in absence of oxygen, and the organic compound which is present into the sewage get degraded, and this water further can be used for tertiary treatment. So there are different methods for secondary treatment. It may be activated sludge method, it may be oxidation pond, it may be trickling filter. There is different type of reactor, MBR, UASB. So many reactors are there which can be used for the secondary treatment. After the secondary treatment of the water goes to tertiary treatment depending upon the water quality parameter. As I've told you in the beginning, that there are certain water quality parameter which defines the quality of water: BOD, COD. There is turbidity, dissolved oxygen, suspended solid, TDS. What kind of organic volatile compound is present, what kind of toxic metal are present. So depending upon the threshold limit, or depending upon the permissible limits, these to meet that demand, the water can be treated for tertiary treatment. There are number of methods which are available for tertiary treatment. It can be chemical precipitation, it can be membrane technology, it may be ozonation, it may be ultraviolet, depending upon the type of pollutant present. And after this treatment, there are the further, if anything is required, there are this can be used for the various purpose depending upon the irrigation parameter. It can be used for irrigation purpose, livestock purpose, fisheries. It can be used for industries, it can be used for construction and demolition purpose, and it can be used for other purpose also. So there are number of policies, regulations which deals with the wastewater management. There are number of rules, whether it is Water Prevention and Control Pollution Act, India National Water Policy, National Fecal Sludge and Septage Management Policy, and so on and so forth. The list is long, but mostly the government is focusing on how this wastewater can be used or can be recycled, and it can be used for various purpose. But if you talk about the national water mission, it promotes the recycling of wastewater for meeting water needs in urban area. If you talk about the various housing, Ministry of Housing and Urban Affairs, it talks about the reuse, recycling of waste in urban areas. Lastly, to conclude, I will discuss about the limitation and challenges for wastewater treatment. I have just classified the limitation and challenges into institutional challenges, regulatory challenges, economic challenges, and technical and social challenges. There is no dearth of technology where the wastewater can be treated, but the development of institutional development, institutional support, the economic demand, and technological or social perspective, these all things need to be kept into mind when we talk about wastewater management. There are number of challenges, but as there are number of opportunities as well. In India, there are number of schemes, number of policies. They are dealing with the wastewater management. There are number of program. I will quote one as I have discussed, but there are few more program. For example, Namami Gange program. This program not only aims for the river rejuvenation, but it also talks about how the wastewater, how the CTPs, how the STPs which are discharging into the water into the river, these STPs water can be reused for various purpose. So with this, I once again thank you for joining us for this Gyan Darshan session on waste water management. So water is a precious resource. I will end my session with saying that save every drop of water because it counts. Thank you. Are you a fresh graduate? Do you want to fulfill your educational aspiration by pursuing higher education in various interdisciplinary and multidisciplinary areas like environmental science, environment and occupational health, philosophy, sustainability science, folklore and culture studies? If yes, the School of Interdisciplinary and Transdisciplinary Studies offers various programs like Master's Program, Graduate Program, Postgraduate Diploma, Certificate and Appreciation Program. The school offers 5 Master's Program. Master of Science, Environmental Science. The eligibility criteria for MSc Environmental Science is Graduate in Science, BTech, BE, Agriculture Graduate, Forestry Graduate and Veterinary Graduate. School also offers Masters in Environment and Occupational Health, Masters in Sustainability Science, Masters in Philosophy and Masters in Folklore and Culture Studies. The eligibility criteria for these 4 Masters program is graduate in any discipline. The school also offers various socially relevant and need-based PG Diploma program like PG Diploma in Sustainability Science, PG Diploma in Environment and Occupational Health, PG Diploma in Folklore and Culture Studies and PG Diploma in Migration and Diaspora Studies. The school also offers PG Certificate in Climate Change.
Hello learners and welcome to this session for the Postgraduate Diploma in Migration and Diaspora, and the topic that we are going to be talking about is the feminization of migration. Now, feminization of migration, as the very term suggests, is a process which has really become a very, very important topic of discussion in recent years in the domain of migration and diaspora studies. It refers to women migrating more to take a job rather than joining male family members as dependents. There has been an increase in the demand for female labor. We find that large numbers of women from developing countries are migrating as care workers to different parts of the world. As per global estimation, we find that female migration comprises nearly 135 million or 48.1% of the international migration in the year 2020. Let's elaborate this concept a little further. Scholars have pointed out that very often we find women have become the main income earners in the family rather than just being family dependents, traveling with their husbands or joining them abroad. And as per the International Organization for Migration, half of the total number of women migrants are now migrating independently or as heads of households. And this includes both single women and married women who are independently migrating for employment. And this is also leading to a redefinition of traditional gender roles within families and societies to some extent. The migration specialist, Professor Amba Pandey, writes that despite the rising numbers and increasing participation of women in the developmental dynamics of migration, they remain increasingly vulnerable and exposed to exploitation. She points out that while the feminization of migration has increased the visibility of women in the discourse of migration, there is a need for better data, to quote, highlighting women's role in the developmental process, evolving policies for ensuring their protection and security, and above all, empowering them and increasing their participation in the labor market, unquote. We'll be discussing some of these dimensions in this session. Now, when we speak about the migration of women, we find that the changes in the global economy and the impact of the neoliberal policies that have been seen all over the world, these have resulted in a series of migration changes also. A number of studies have shown that the neoliberal policy leads to a change in the social structure. And in fact, we find that over the years, the gap between the rich and the poor has been increasing. We also see the growth of the informal economy, and therefore large numbers of women enter into the workforce through the informal economy. The expectation of earning a higher income and the economic pressures compel women from developing countries to migrate as workers. So in a nutshell, we see that this whole process of feminization of migration has to be seen in the context of this changing social, economic, and political dynamics that we see in the globalizing world. The 2013 report, World Migration in Figures of the UNDSA, reported that the proportion of female migrants ranged from 52% in the global north to 43% in the global south. And the 2020 UN Migration Report reported increasing gender-specific demand for migrant workers. As per the report, female migrants constitute 48% of all international migrants. So there has been, as you can see, an emphasis and a focus on women migrants, not just as dependents, but also as migrants, economic migrants in their own rights, and the number of issues and challenges that this unfolds. We see that the flow of female migration is not equal, and it varies as per geographical location, sector, and demand. Quite naturally, we see that certain sectors are more prominent. For instance, those sectors which are most commonly associated with so-called women's work, like care work, the hospitality sector, and teaching, which is where traditionally we tend to find larger numbers of women concentrated. We see that in general, women from developing countries migrate for care work or as domestic workers. And in this context, we see that India, the Philippines, Sri Lanka, Pakistan, and Bangladesh are the major sender countries. Let's discuss about the gender dimension in greater detail. If you look at the global economy, we find that the demand and supply for both men and women are different. As per the general trend, it is seen that men get engaged more in skilled and highly skilled jobs, for example, the technology sector. However, we find that a large number of women are concentrated in the semi-skilled and unskilled sectors, including care work, where there is a greater demand for female workers. Women tend to cluster around what we call the emotional and care sector, which is work that basically demands a great deal of emotional investment from them as caregivers. For instance, we see professions such as nursing, housekeeping, and housemaids. And this has become a booming sector where female migration can be seen in recent years. To continue, we see that women are generally in demand in work that reinforces the traditional gender roles and is therefore unvalued. So as we mentioned, work that is considered as women's work, work that is believed to be natural or a part of women's psyche or women's social expectations, this kind of work which basically centers around caring, unfortunately, we see that historically such work has never really received its due economic value. It is work that is unrecognized, invisibilized, and undervalued. And quite naturally, to continue with this, we see that many jobs in the service sector are unregulated and invisible in nature. For example, home care work and domestic work, where the labor that the women do takes place within the four walls of the private house. And in this context, it is largely unregulated, it is invisible, and very often it can be extremely exploitative. So work that is done within the four walls of the house really doesn't follow any labor laws or regimes or any kind of specific codes or work codes. The work that is done in the home is something that cannot really be counted, that really cannot be delimited. And because women find themselves in such kinds of jobs or in such kinds of employment, we find that the tendency to exploit them also increases. We find that globally, the demand for these workers is increasing. And also the poverty that we find in developing countries, the cheap labor or the readily available labor in developing countries is therefore able to fulfill the demands for cheap female labor. Let's look a little bit at the geographical spread of migrant women labor. We find that professional female workers, those engaged in the skilled and highly skilled jobs, migrate from Europe and North America. And both developed and developing countries are generating demands for female workers. The major recipient countries include Europe, North and South America, the UAE, Saudi Arabia, Bahrain, Oman, Qatar, and Malaysia. So the Gulf is a very, very important catchment area for women migrant workers, particularly those who are coming in from South Asian countries. We find that India is one of the top countries to send out migrants, which includes skilled, semi-skilled, and unskilled workers to the international labor market. So we find that India is a very, very major labor exporting country, and professionals and unskilled workers from India go in large numbers to almost every country in the globe. India also sends many domestic and care workers globally, as do countries like Sri Lanka, Pakistan, and Bangladesh. And if you look at East Asia, Southeast Asia, you will find that Philippines is also an important hub for sending out female workers. We see also that women from South America and the Caribbean islands are extremely mobile. There is a great amount of migration, but they frequently tend to get involved in low-skilled work. And the women migrant flow for low-skilled work is also reported from the African continent. So basically, we see that the high incidence of poverty and low employment opportunities in the home country pushes many women to migrate to European nations, North America, and Arab countries searching for jobs. Let's talk a little bit more now of a very, very important category of women workers, a category which is frequently invisibilized and whose problems and issues are often neglected in literature as well as in policy making. But nonetheless, they constitute an extremely important category of workers, and these are the domestic workers. Now, domestic work, the sector attracts a large number of women migrants from low-income countries. Domestic work generally guarantees an easy access or entry into the labor market. Of course, we must point out that it is not only women who go as domestic workers. Domestic work also includes men and women. But we find that there is a very strong presence of women migrants. And since our session is about feminization of migration, we will refer to domestic work as a very important source of migration opportunities for women workers. We find that the migrant worker provides essential services to the owner and indirectly to the host country. They earn money and they contribute to their family income, and the remittances they send back home contribute to the development of their region. So while they may go out to work for their employers, they also help their own families by earning, sending back remittances so that their families may be sustained, and this also leads to an increase in the development of the region to which they belong. We see that the money that they send back home helps their family members to invest in children's education, the health care of family members, repayment of debts also. At the same time, there is a lot of literature which suggests that when women migrate, unfortunately, the education and care of the children that they leave behind tends to suffer. But then there are two sides to every coin, as we can see. We see that working women's social remittances motivate other women. So if there is a woman in one's network who has gone to a foreign country, who is earning, who's sending back money to maintain her family, it frequently leads or motivates other women to want to be aspirational and to actually move out of their home settings and to seek work and to become earning members who will contribute both to the family as such and to the economy. And this may positively impact other women in their circle, in their locality, in their state, for instance. We also see that the skill and the knowledge that these women migrants gain while working outside may change their attitude and raise their confidence. Just by going out, living independently, earning, contributing to the family income, this is a very, very important step in many of their lives, which challenges their oppression within patriarchal relations and establishes them as important members of the family and the society. And because their confidence may rise, we find that the urge or the desire to migrate may also increase amongst their contacts and their extended family members. However, the picture is not so rosy always. It is also essential to understand that they face many vulnerabilities, especially when they go in low-paying and highly labor-intensive work. The most prominent are low wages or no wages, long hours of work, sexual exploitation, and trafficking. The literature suggests that only very few domestic workers are covered by general labor laws. There is a lack of awareness amongst many of them, a low level of education which makes them unaware of their rights. And in some countries, we see that there is policy restriction on the movement of people, and this sometimes hampers the opportunities for female migrant workers also. The restrictions on opportunities to migrate from one destination to another freely may actually place very, very severe kinds of restrictions or boundaries on female workers, which will restrict their ability to move freely and to earn. One of the very, very crucial and difficult situations or vulnerabilities that is faced by many migrant workers is the cheating that they may undergo by fake recruiting agents, and this may result to them being exposed to trafficking. Trafficking, as you know, is a very, very serious crisis that is facing the world and will certainly be the subject of discussions in subsequent sessions. The recruitment process also can sometimes be extremely difficult. For instance, application for a passport, acquiring a visa, submitting the contract, and paying the fees associated with the recruitment fees may lead many women migrant workers into all kinds of difficult situations. They may not read the agreement carefully, they may not understand it perfectly, and therefore this may result in their getting exploited. And increasingly we find that there are many cases of women who in a sense get lured or trapped into these kinds of situations and then face a great deal of trouble. So their aim may have been to go out to work, but because they have been lured or because they have been trapped by unscrupulous recruitment agents, they end up in extremely difficult situations from which it is very often very, very difficult to save or help them out. Right now, let's talk about an interesting system regarding migrant work that has been cited in the literature extensively and refers specifically to a kind of a contract system wherein workers, both male and female, may migrate, but unfortunately really be bound to very, very difficult working conditions and terms. This is the kafala system, about which a lot has been written. Many Gulf countries follow this system, under which the individual or the company holds the sponsorship permits to employ foreign labor. And this system provides the workers legal status to private citizens rather than the state. Critics of the system argue that the system is exploitative, and more so for women who may be forced to stay at the home of the sponsor and therefore face various kinds of exploitation. Under the system, we see that the state gives local individuals or companies sponsorship permits to employ foreign laborers. The sponsor covers travel expenses and provides housing, often in dormitory-like accommodations, or, in the case of domestic workers, in the home of the sponsors. And we often see that sponsors may use private recruitment agencies in the countries of origin to find workers and facilitate their entry into the home country. The system usually falls under the jurisdiction of interior ministries rather than labor ministries. Therefore, we find that workers who get recruited under these kinds of systems really don't have any protection under the labor laws of the host countries. And often their employment and residency visas are linked, and only sponsors can renew or terminate them. So we find that it is private citizens who control workers' legal statuses, thereby creating a power imbalance. Now, these kinds of systems do exist in the world, and there is a good deal of discussion and debate on them, and a need particularly to protect vulnerable workers, vulnerable migrant workers, especially women workers, from such systems. To expand further, we can talk about the care services sector, which is different, slightly different from domestic work, but also carries with it similar kinds of insecurities and vulnerabilities. We find that under care services, women provide home-based personal services, or they may provide work as nurses in hospital. And in the home-based care work, they are responsible for attending to the needs of children, elderly people, sick people, persons with disabilities, and so on. But it is also seen that in hospitals, it is the migrant women workers who do most of the nursing and assisting work. So we find that there is a power imbalance. We find that race and gender play a very, very important role in shaping the kinds of work and the amount of workload and the working conditions that are experienced by women migrant workers. We find that they are frequently underpaid and overworked. Even though they are underpaid and overworked, they may not be able to protest. They may be too scared, or they may be too fearful of actually confronting the employer for fear that they would be exploited further. We find that by and large their working conditions are poor. Many may have to work overtime, and work is neither respected nor valued. There is often a lack of social security, and like I've mentioned, a fear of repercussions in case they raise the issue of the nature of their employment. We see that many poorly educated migrant workers are not in a position to raise their voice against these exploitative conditions due to the lack of legal support in the host countries. And this becomes a particularly serious matter when we talk about women workers. Now, how are women workers to be protected from so many of these vulnerabilities and challenges that they are subject to by virtue of their being women, by virtue of their being poor, and by virtue of them being needy? So if you look at the Indian context, we find that as per Indian policies and laws, women workers below 30 years of age are not permitted to migrate for work as domestic workers. Recruiting agents and workers must ensure that the employment contract contains all the crucial provisions like salary, accommodation, transport, and medical cover. The ECR, the immigration check required category of passport holders, and nurses who plan to travel to ECR countries require immigration clearance through the immigration system. And women migrating to ECR countries as domestic workers have to go through the state-run recruiting agencies. For nurses, for example, it is mandatory to acquire immigration clearance from the Protector of Immigrants, or the POE. Now, apart from these legal or these protective measures, what are the other policy measures that can be thought of to protect and enhance the status of women migrant labor? Firstly, their empowerment and inclusion in the international labor market is a very, very important issue that needs to be thought through and that needs to be protected and strengthened. Regularizing the undocumented women migrants whenever and wherever they are found is a very, very important issue which needs to be taken up. And also, as many policy analysts have suggested, comprehensive pre-departure training programs for country-specific requirements regarding language, rules, and regulations is very, very important so that these women migrant workers really understand more about the country that they are going to, the rules and regulations, what is expected of them, what are their rights and entitlements, and so on. So this pre-departure comprehensive training is of the essence. Upskilling workers for domestic work, child rearing, and all other forms of work to enhance their competitiveness in the labor market is also one of the very important recommendations provided by analysts and scholars. To conclude, we can say that the feminization of migration is a very, very important area for study and analysis by scholars of migration and diaspora. The gendered inequalities and roles must be foregrounded while analyzing this. So while we talk about female migration, economic, sociological, psychological, policy, and international relations perspectives, in other words, interdisciplinary and multidisciplinary perspectives into understanding feminization of migration, need to be taken on board by students of migration and diaspora. Policy perspectives should incorporate the lived realities and experiences of women migrants and consider their voices and choices as crucial agents of development. So there needs to be a looking into the actual experiences that women undergo, the actual lived realities, both positive and negative, so that by bringing them on board, by incorporating their experiences and making them partners in policy making, we will be able to create a system or a policy framework that empowers women and makes them partners in development. Thank you.
Hello viewers. This MA program in Environmental and Occupational Health focuses on the relationship between people and their environment and fosters safe and healthy communities. And this is of utmost importance. This program is an MA in Environmental and Occupational Health. The type of the program is a master's program and the medium of instruction will be in English. The duration of the program will be a minimum of 2 years and a maximum of 4 years. The target group will be a graduation from any discipline. Mainly the professionals working in environmental and occupational sector and non-governmental organizations are welcome to join. Doctors, nurses, paramedical graduates and employees can join the course. Employees from the Central Pollution Control Board, civil servants of the state and central governments, faculty, researchers and students in universities, research organizations and colleges will find this program very interesting. Graduates aspiring to pursue a career in environmental management, occupational health and safety, industrial health and safety will also find this program of useful relevance. The job opportunities for this program is tremendous. They can work as environmental health and safety specialist, occupational health and safety specialist in various organizations, HSE coordinator and protection officers. They can also work as worksite wellness coordinators, public administration and safety professionals. They can also work as industrial hygienists and ergonomists in the various organizations. Then the safety and environmental health managers, toxicologists, health and safety engineering specializations are also very important. The objectives of this program include the following. They will discuss the impact of the environmental hazards on human health. Then they will describe the policies, laws, standards and the measurement techniques and applications in different occupational setups. They will also help to develop mitigation strategies to contain and manage environmental and occupational hazards for positive health. Finally, they will also help to exhibit the knowledge and skills that are needed to improve the environmental sustainability of human health systems. First year courses of the MA program include Introduction to Environmental Health, Environmental and Occupational Hazards, Environmental Law and Management, Environmental Toxicology, Occupational Health and Safety Project Work, Environmental Impact Assessment for Environmental Health, Health Care, Agriculture and Allied Sector, Industrial Sector. The second year MA courses include Gender Issues in Work, Employment and Productivity, Disaster Management, Sustainable Natural Resource Management, Safety Philosophy and Principles of Accident Prevention, Disaster Medicine and Global Climate Change, Fundamentals of Mental Health, Gender Issues in Agriculture, Rural Livelihoods and Natural Resource Management, Globalization, Environment and Development, and Introduction to Geoinformatics. The instructional system that is followed at IGNOU includes the multimedia approach, the self-learning materials, audio-video programs, assignments, counseling sessions, project work, teleconferencing and interactive radio counseling are conducted time to time every month for the benefit of the learners. The self-instructional material is available on the EMPC-IGNOU website and also the printed material. The assignments are also freely available and they can be downloaded from the IGNOU website on the students zone. After successful completion of the first year, the learners can get a postgraduate diploma with an exit option, and the term and examination is held twice a year in June as well as in December. The admission link for the program.
Hello viewers, welcome to the session of Master of Arts in Environmental and Occupational Health. Myself, Professor B. Rupini, would like to introduce a topic of chemical hazards which is a part of MAV 002, that is Environmental and Occupational Hazards. And we have with us in our studio on another expert, Dr. Sushmita Bhaskar is also with us, and then welcome Dr. Sushmita Bhaskar.
Thank you, ma'am.
And we both will discuss about the chemical hazards with you, which is a part of MAV 002, that is Environmental and Occupational Hazards. So most of the chemical hazards are the hazardous chemicals we are working in everyday our life, in our offices, in our organizations, of course, in various build-up situations, that is in our buildings, or maybe it is a occupational setup, or in any of the workplace, especially in industrial setup also. So these chemicals are hazardous to us, but we don't know about that sort of characteristic features of that sort of compounds. So the employees, those who are working in that sort of hazardous chemicals, working with that, and also the industrial setup, they should know about the harmful nature of that particular compounds, or otherwise they should understand the how to recognize a hazardous chemical which are around them, and also how to use them or how to handle them, and also finally how to dispose of them. So we all know that so much of chemical sciences are advanced. There are so much of advancement is there in the chemical science applications. Of course, they have contributed immensely for our daily lives, or otherwise we can say that for the betterment of the human civilization and also the human development. But it doesn't mean that we are not considering them properly, or we are not using them properly. At the same time, they are also have a hazardous exposure or hazardous effects on the human health as well as the general environment. So with these words, I would like to introduce about the chemical hazards. There are many types of chemical hazards are there. So what is meant by the chemical hazard? So by seeing itself that the chemical hazard is any of the compound, when we expose to any of the chemical substances, whether it is in a minute quantity itself, it can pose a hazard or the health effect or the adverse health effect for the human beings. When it is released into the atmosphere, it will also have the adverse effects on the environment. In simple words, we can say that any chemical that can cause illness, injury, or an emergency situation to the human health as well as the environment. So here we can say that how can we expose to the chemical? Any of the chemical, if we will expose to that. So it depends upon the route of exposure. Maybe it is the local application or the physical application of that particular chemical, or it can also enters into our body by inhalation, or otherwise we can say that it is also by ingestion, that is maybe it is by the swallowing of that particular chemical in any of the form. So there are many types of chemical hazards in their forms. Maybe it is liquid, maybe it is solid, maybe it is gaseous compound. So that we will get to know that what type of chemical in which form is highly hazardous to the human beings. So the most of the chemical compounds, they exist in nature of different forms. Maybe it is a solid form. Of course, solid forms are not directly come in contact with us and does not enters into our body directly. But when it exposed to, or sometimes for example lead, it is a solid. As such solid, it will not have any adverse effects on human health. But when it ignited at the higher temperatures, definitely it will transform into the liquid, and also when it is solidified, it forms as a dust, lead dust. So that's why there are many forms and many of the procedures where any of the chemical compound is hazardous. And also liquids. There are so many flammable liquids are there. Most of the organic solvents which we are come across in the laboratories or in any of the industries or the industrial effluents, these are hazardous in nature. So they may be liquids. So sometimes some compounds are volatile in nature at the room temperature itself, and then piling up of that volatile compounds, they are highly flammable in nature. And some compounds are in the gaseous form. So sometimes the gaseous hazardous chemicals are colorless. So it is very difficult to recognize them. So identification of hazard and identification of such compounds of chemical compounds or the toxic chemicals are also most important to understand, and then employees, those who are working particularly, they have to have that sort of knowledge about that sort of chemicals. And sometimes they may be in the vapor form, dust form, just like that the asbestos, and the fumes, fiber, mist, as well as nanoparticles. Now we will see that what type of chemical hazards are there. So on the basis of sources, we can divide it into the chemical hazards, that is the chemical compounds, into highly inflammable chemicals and corrosive chemicals, and also the reactive chemicals. So today we are dealing with these first two, that is the inflammable chemicals as well as the corrosive chemicals. So first we will see what are the characteristic features of the hazardous chemicals. So for the abbreviation I have given here, that is a TRIC, that is a TRIC, that is the first one is the toxicity. So the amount of any chemical compound which causes a toxic effect on human being as well as the environment is the toxicity. So there are more than 40 toxic chemicals which are present in the in nature. They are highly inflammable in nature in any of the form, and that means it will catch fire easily. So for example, I have given that mercury, lead, as well as benzene. There are toluene, and also all alcohols, that is ethanol or isopropanol. For example, I can say that the normal sanitizers which everyday we are using. And the second characteristic feature is the reactivity. So that means any of the substances, especially the hazardous waste or the hazardous chemicals which are present in the effluents or the hazardous waste, they tend to be very reactive at the room temperature itself, at the normal temperature itself. So for example, I have given cyanide as well as the sulfide. So cyanide as well as sulfide, they are the battery bearings. They will present in the atmosphere as an effluent, we can say that. So they can cause the cancerous to the lungs as well as the central nervous system. And the third characteristic feature is the ignitability. That means any of the liquid form. So all organic compounds or all organic solvents are highly flammable in nature. So that means any compound which is having a temperature of the ignitability, that we can say that it is more than 60 degrees centigrade. So that means any compound which is having an ignitable temperature, there is a limit, that is not more than the 60 degrees centigrade. So they are ignitable. Sometimes maybe it is ignitable with source, or sometimes it is octo-ignitable. And the fourth important characteristic feature is the corrosivity. So that means here we have given one example, that is the battery acids. That means acids, normally we can have that criteria, that the pH. So if suppose pH of that any of the acid or any of the toxic chemicals or the substances which have pH below 2, we can consider it as a corrosive. Or sometimes it may be, sometimes the other criteria is the pH of that particular chemical compound is more than 12.5. So these are considered as toxic in nature. So these are the four most important characteristic features of the chemical substances. So now we will see that in most of the industrial procedures, these chemicals are as effluents. It will enters into the general environment and causes the human beings, those who are working in that closed setup. So most of these leakages or most of these spills are the accidents or the disasters of the chemicals, and then those disastrous chemicals which enters and then cause the adverse effects are because of the maybe technical errors, maybe the human errors, or the lack of information on that, and then organizational errors. So whatever it is the cause, all the chemical compounds which will enter into the general atmosphere and have the adverse effect on the health. And now we have to see that what makes a chemical to be hazardous in nature. So all chemical compounds are hazardous in nature wherever they are exposed to. But the number one important point is the toxicity. That means how the chemical is a toxic in nature depends upon the amount of the quantity, amount of that chemical substances that can cause a toxic effect on the human being. And the second is the route of exposure. That means we have seen that there are three routes of exposure of a chemical is there. Whether it is an ingestion or sometimes it is at the local exposure or by touching or by the ingestion or by the swallowing. So the route of exposure is also matters. And the third important is the dose. That means how much quantity of that particular chemical substances we are exposed to. So the dose of the chemical compound is also most important. Sometimes the children are more vulnerable to that any of the some of the chemical compounds than the adults. And the fourth one is the duration. That means how long we are exposed to that particular chemical. Sometimes in the industry, some experts or some employees, they can work only for half an hour. So their exposure limit is only half an hour to the particular compound. Some people are working for the 20 hours per day. So that means there is a larger duration to expose to that particular compound or the particular chemical. So the duration also matters the chemical to be hazardous. And the fifth one is the multiple exposure. That means not only for the single exposure to a single chemical compound, but also the other toxic chemicals they are exposed to. So multiple exposure of the chemicals. For example, one employee working in the asbestos factory, for example. So he is exposed to the asbestos fiber. And also if suppose he is also a cigarette smoker. So that means he is exposed to the smoking as well as the particular asbestos. That means there is a multiple effect of the adverse effects. And the fifth one is the individual susceptibility. That means all chemicals will not have a negative effect on the human health. It depends upon the person to person as well as gender and also the age and also the whatever the illness they have already. So they have to have some globally harmonized system should be there for proper labeling of that chemical compound where they are working for. So that everybody should be understand that there is a chemical or there is a toxic chemical, it is potentially hazardous to the human health. So that sort of indication should be there in everywhere where the working condition or any of the occupation is concerned. If you will see that globally harmonized system, so if suppose the category of the explosive, it should be properly labeled within exploding bomb, the pictograms. And if it is in a flammable compound, you have to have a flame and then above the circle. And like that oxidizing, that is a flame over circle, and corrosive, there is a corrosion as well as the table of the corrosivity, and acute toxicity, skull and crossbones should be represented, and hazardous to the environment, that is a dead tree and then fish, that is a symbol of that one, and also the health hazards or the exclamation mark should be there, and serious health hazard there have to the human stilettos. So these are the some of the important factors. And the other one is the flammable chemical material. How do we know that flammable chemical compound? So by seeing, or maybe it is a colorless. So that's why there are the four characteristic features are there. There is a flash point, boiling point, fire point, and auto ignition temperature point. So these are the four basic characteristics of any of the inflammable compound or inflammable chemical substances. Flash point is nothing but the lowest temperature of that particular compound where it can catch fire when it is the source of ignition is there. Then the boiling point of a liquid is any of the temperature of the vapor pressure of that particular temperature is equals to the atmospheric pressure where the liquid changes to the vapor state. And the next one is the fire point. It is also the lowest temperature where any of the chemical substance that can catch fire, and the auto ignition temperature is one of the characteristic feature where the temperature where it will automatically catch fire without having any external ignition source. So these are the four categories of the inflammable compounds. They should be notified properly wherever there is a storage or the transportation or working with that sort of the chemicals. And these are the some of the chemicals effects of the adverse health effects, are the adverse health impacts of the persons, are the employees, those who are working in the with the hazardous chemicals. That is a bronchial irritation, depression, dizziness, damage to the central nervous system, and also if you will see the long term exposure, that is a chronic exposure to these solvent vapors, they can have a severe liver as well as kidney damage. And also sometimes the odor of toxic chemicals also like chloroform and benzene, they can also cause severe health effects, that they are highly carcinogenic in nature. So here this is a one collage form I would like to show you, that these are the chemical hazard or the chemical accidents, disasters because of the inflammable. If you will see that we have the Chernobyl disaster is there in Ukraine. So there is an the what are the effluents or the toxic chemicals that are evolved from this accident. That is a piling up of the radionuclide, that is iodine 131, that is the isotopes, and also cesium 134 as well as 137. So these nucleides are enters into the body, and then they will present in the atmosphere in the longer duration, and then we are all experienced and then evident also that the Bhopal gas tragedy, because there is a methyl isocyanate. So these are the some of the examples I would like to give. So these are that is a piling up of the chemicals, highly inflammable. Because of the characteristic features, one has to label it properly, and then one has to understand the overuse or the misuse of the chemicals will also threat to the human beings. So now I would like to ask Dr. Sushmita Bhaskar to show some light on the corrosive chemicals. Ma'am.
Thank you, Professor Rupni ma'am, for explaining the chemical hazards and also detailing on the flammable materials. Now coming on to the corrosive chemical materials. So corrosive chemicals are those that can cause destruction, for example, to any metal, and they can also cause damage, in fact immediate damage to the living tissues, and that is why we use the term corrosive. So in this figure you can see that any acid or anything which strikes a metal or a hand, then immediately you can find that that part is affected. The second, that is a corrosive nature. This could be exhibited by liquids, by solids, by gases, and they can cause severe hazards to your human health. That is, those who are working in the industrial sectors and they are working with such chemicals, then they can see that there can be problems with the eye, the cornea, and they can have permanent blindness when it directly contacts the eye. In the same way, when the living tissues are damaged, and respiratory tract can also be destroyed when it is inhaled directly. So that is why they have to work in a fume hood, they have to wear the proper personal protective equipments, and also for storing such corrosive chemicals, a special corrosive chamber is there where these chemicals have to be stored. Now, when we talk about the etymology, from where does this word come from? So this comes from a Latin word that is corrodere, that means to gnaw, indicating how these materials gnaw through the skin or through the flesh and other materials, so they can make way. And this word corrosive, it refers to any chemical that will dissolve on contact with that body, be it any metal or be it any living tissue. The terminology is used here. At a lower concentration of such corrosive chemicals, we say that it is an irritant, and the type of reaction that it causes, it is called as irritation, for example in dermatitis. At higher concentrations, when these corrosive substances attack a living tissue or a metal, then we say that chemical burns can be caused, or that metal can be completely corroded. So these are some terminologies that are used when it is used at a lower concentration or when they are used at a higher concentration. And these corrosives are quite different from poisons, because poisons, they exert a systemic effect on the body and it takes time to be evident. But in the case of a corrosive, immediately when an acid strikes, then you can see that it is that place is permanently damaged. So this is immediate and dangerous hazard. The corrosion of living surfaces. Now, if you see in this figure, for example, in the non-living surface like metals, when the water, air, electrochemical cell corrodes iron to rust. In the same way, you can see on the right hand side where the copper, it is corroding to patina. In the same way, the copper, silver and other metals can also tarnish due to corrosion process. Living tissues. So their action on the living tissues, that is really dangerous, and that is why people who are working with such material have to be extra cautious. For example, acid-base reactions like amide hydrolysis, ester hydrolysis and protein denaturation. If you see this figure, proteins are composed of the amide bonds, and these can be destroyed by the amide hydrolysis. So that is what occurs when corrosion strikes the living tissues. In the same way, lipids. So in this figure, you can see triglycerides. These are esters of glycerol and fatty acids. Glycerol, which is a backbone over here, is a water-soluble alcohol, and in fatty chains you have a methyl group and you have a carboxylic group on the other side. So the ester hydrolysis can happen because of the corrosive chemicals, and these reactions can lead to chemical burns, and then the destruction can proceed further. So where are these corrosives used? They are normally used in any household cleaning agent, for example in the drain cleaners. Then why? Because they dissolve the grease and all the mineral deposits that are found in the rusty pipes. Then catalytic sulfuric acid, that is also being done in the oil refinery centers. So the alkylation process which is done in an oil refinery, here corrosives are used. So several environmental problems related to the non-treatment of this sewage being liberated into the environment, and again accidental discharge, this can all result in environmental pollution and the pollution of the river bodies or the water bodies. Now some examples of the corrosive chemicals, they include the acids, the bases, oxidizing agents, dehydrating agents, and some of the list is given here like glycolic acid, sodium hydroxide, amine, sulfuric acid, bromine, and also hydrogen peroxide. So all acids come under the category of corrosive, be it the hydrofluoric acid or the hydrochloric acid, sulfuric acid, and so on. So why sulfuric acid is being used extensively in the dye industry, in the paint, and also in the petroleum industry, and also in processing, and also in the automobile batteries. So this is capable of dehydrating the carbohydrate. They can give out extra heat, so thereby thermal burns in addition to the chemical burns can occur due to the corrosive. And further, it can also speed up some of the decomposing reactions on the contact surface. So that is why we have to be extra careful when dealing with acid and acidic material. So the hazard, this can be due to the liquid form, as Professor Rupini ma'am mentioned, by inhalation, by ingestion, also by contact. All this can give rise to several of the health hazards. Phenol and hydrofluoric acid, this can bring about a lot of burns, like for example, the hydrofluoric acid can even cause the tissue damage without causing any pain. Glutaraldehyde, this is used in the medical and in the dental treatment. It is used as a disinfectant and as a sterilizing agent. This again can cause permanent eye damage and skin irritation. In the same way, we have zinc chloride. So these are capable of destroying cellulose and corroding through the paper and the silk. Why? Because zinc cations in the solution, they can specifically attack the hydroxyl group and it can act as a Lewis acid. So there are a lot of properties, like for example, we have the burns that are caused by the corrosives, and also there are other problems like they can be flammable and ignitable, as madam said, and they can also cause the explosive products can be formed due to their reacting ability. Caustic soda also on contact, this can cause a blister formation, and eye can be completely, a person can go blind because of the problem with the eye permanent blindness. So in the same way, there are several other of the irritants, aromatic nitro compounds, amino compounds, and as we also suggested about, there are several case studies related specifically the love canal, where the waste, specifically the chemical waste, was dumped into the love canal, and this land was sold to a school and residences began coming up there. Later, after 20 years, when the people found that the children found that their souls were disintegrating, and the people working in the schools, they suffered burns, they realized that so many of the hazardous chemicals were actually discovered, and that was toxic to the human health. So that was a chemical disaster, and waste which was not disposed of properly, and several millions of money had to be given in order to recompensate and to relocate the land and do all the waste direct to the waste treatment facilities. So that was about the corrosive chemicals.
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Sushmita. Learners, so now we have to see that the mitigation measures. So there are so many mitigation measures, the government policies are there. So one has to execute that. One few of the mitigation measures I would like to give that. The modification in the process of the industrial procedures, where the chemicals are converted into the less chemical or the less toxic compounds, and should be before throwing into the atmosphere. And also the minimum quantities of the chemical should be used, and also we have to ensure that there should not be any ignition sources around where the storage as well as the transportation of that toxic chemicals. And also the liquid chemicals that receiving are the dispensing the containers, that is also most important, and accumulation of vapors should not be there. If suppose accumulation of vapors are there, one has to see that the proper ventilation should be there. And these are the chemical hazard symbol should be compulsory labeled properly where there are the toxic chemicals are there. And there are the workers' right to know. Some acts or the policies are also there, and properly they have to maintain the material safety data sheet, that is a MSD should be there wherever the toxic chemicals are there. And also the workplace hazardous chemical training must be given to the employees, those who are working with that. And also if suppose new chemicals are there, they have to have properly trained. And these are the some of the relevant statutes as well as the management for the hazardous substances. There is the Environmental Protection Act, and also the Manufacturing and Storage Act, and the Hazardous Waste Management, and the Factories Act, like that. So with these we would like to conclude that Dr. Sushmita, today we have discussed in this session about the chemical hazards which are because of the flammable compounds as well as the corrosive substances also. And I think you must be benefited with this session. And so we have to understand that we have to have proper understanding before using the toxic chemicals. So we would like to come up with the other session with the other topic. Thank you.
Thank you.
We wear clothes on a daily basis. But have we ever wondered, where do our clothes come from? Who makes our clothing? And who are the people and the process responsible for the whole manufacturing of our clothing? If you want to know more about this, Indira Gandhi National Open University from the School of Continuing Education has launched a program which is Certificate in Apparel Merchandising. There are many benefits after doing this program. You can become a designer in various fields. It can be fashion designer, apparel designer, costume designer, or even a textile designer. One can also work as a fashion consultant. Research and development is another field which one can take up after doing this certificate course. Going into academics is another perk after doing this program. Getting into fashion houses or fashion studios as an intern is also a very good option post doing the certificate in apparel merchandising. The basic eligibility of the program is 10+2. The duration of the program is 6 months to 2 years. The program is also available for both the admission cycles, which is July and January. The exams are conducted twice a year, in June and December. So what are you waiting for? Join this program and get an enriching knowledge in the field of apparel merchandising. And to do so, you can log on to the official website of the university, www.ignou.ac.in.
नमस्ते व्यूअर्स, सबको बहुत बहुत स्वागत स्कूल ऑफ मैनेजमेंट स्टडीज़ इग्नो के तरफ से। आज हम एक छोटा सा सेशन करेंगे जिसमें आपको एमबीए, डिफरेंट टाइप्स ऑफ एमबीएस और नया जो 4 पीजी डिप्लोमा प्रोग्राम्स ऑफर कर रहे हैं, वी विल हाईलाइट अपन दैट एंड ऑल्सो ब्रिंग certain to your notice certain new developments like internal credit transfer scheme that has been very recently notified by the university, which is very useful for our old learners also who are eagerly waiting for taking the credit transfer scheme and completing the program. So first, we will understand about the MBA program of IGNOU, which is the flagship program of the university. Every nook and corner of the country knows about the MBA program of IGNOU. Now it is approved by AICTE, it is recognized by UGC, and UGC has also notified that the online and the digital distance mode MBA program is at par with the conventional MBA programs. So it has now been developed in such a way that it provides employment opportunities and also it gives us the knowledge of the latest concepts and about the theories. So it has become a brand new MBA program structure with all new kinds of courses and it ensures that it provides employment opportunities. So there are 11 types of management programs that are being offered by School of Management Studies, which includes 7 MBAs and 4 PG diploma in specializations. So the 7 MBA include our general MBA program, which is offered through ODL mode. Second one is MBA through online mode. The same MBA program is offered through 2 different modes. One is through ODL and one is through online. Then there are 4 specialized standalone MBA programs which offers the specialization courses in different on varieties of specialization courses like MBA in Human Resource Management, MBA in Financial Management, Operations Management and Marketing Management. Then very recently we have introduced 4 new postgraduate diploma in specializations, that is postgraduate diploma in Human Resource Management, Operations Management, Marketing Management and Financial Management. So learners have the option to choose any of these 11 programs, like 4 PG diploma options are there, 4 specialized MBA options are there, and MBA, general MBA either through ODL or through online mode. So they have multiple options and specializations that is on offer which the learners can choose. So coming to our general MBA program, what is the eligibility? Any graduate of 3 years duration with 50% marks for general category and 45% for reserved category can enroll in any of the MBA programs without appearing for any entrance test. And the admission cycles are in January and July. So during taking admission, the learner can choose either through ODL mode or through online mode. The program structure remains same, the program fees also remain same. The program fees of our MBA program either through ODL or through online is 15,500 per semester, and the duration, minimum duration is 2 years and maximum duration in which the learner can complete the MBA program is 4 years, and it is semester based in 2 years 4 semesters or up to a maximum up to 8 semesters the learner can complete the MBA program. There are 5 specializations that are offered. that is human resource management, marketing management, operations management, financial management and services management, which has been newly introduced. Now coming to the program structure, broad program structure of our MBA program. These are semester, there are 4 semesters in the MBA program. Each semester consists of 7 courses. The first 2 semesters consist of only core courses, that is 14 courses one learner has to complete in the first 2 semester. In the third semester there are 2 core courses and one project course which is equivalent to 2 courses again, and there are 4 courses the learner has to choose from the available basket of specialization courses. Similarly, in the 4th semester there are 4 core courses and 3 courses the learner has to choose from the area of specialization. Once the learner selects the area of specialization, then he or she has to choose 4 courses from the basket in the semester 3 and 3 more courses in the semester 4. Now today I have Professor Rajiv Sukla with me, who is the program coordinator of MBA online, and he is also the discipline coordinator of our management discipline of School of Management Studies. So he will highlight the program in detail about the MBA through online mode and about also the standalone specialized MBA programs. So it's over to you.
Thank you, madam. Professor Nayantara has very well explained about the structure of the MBA programs and different MBA programs the School of Management Studies is offering. The basic difference between MBA OL or MBA online program and MBA ODL program is that the MBA online program is offered through LMS, Learning Management System. IGNOU has LMS system. So online programs are offered through LMS system where the students can access the all notifications and the self-learning materials in digital form through their ID password. They will get from online, Center of Online of IGNOU, and also they can upload their assignments online, and preferably the assignments is in written form, but we also accept the typed pages also. So the basic difference is the mode of delivery. Otherwise, the general MBA program and MBA online program both are AICTE approved, and the credits are the same, the number of courses are same. In MBA online program also, the specializations are offered from 3rd semester onward. In this MBA online program, the synopsis of the project that I will cover later on, that is also uploaded online. And besides of this MBA, general MBA and online MBA program, School of Management Studies is also offering 4 stand-alone MBA programs. These are the specialization programs, and these are in the areas of human resource management, marketing management, operations management, and financial management. The basic difference between general MBA, MBA online, and the stand-alone MBA programs are that in general MBA programs or MBA online programs, the specializations are selected from 3rd semester onward. That means the students have to select their specialization courses in 3rd semester and in 4th semester. Whereas in the case of stand-alone MBA programs, the student have to select their specialization from 1st semester itself. So the suggestion from our side is that if the learner is well versed and he or she has already sure that the selection about the specializations. So they can directly go to the MBA specialization if in case of the fresh students where there is no clarity regarding the specializations, so they can opt for the MBA general program and they can choose the specialization programs from third semester onward. So these are the basic difference between three programs. One is core MBA, other is MBA online program, and third is the MBA specialization programs or standalone MBA programs. We are also offering the PG diploma programs, and for this I would request Professor Nayantara to share some more information regarding the diploma programs.
From this session onwards, that is January 23 session onwards, we have offered 4 new postgraduate diploma in 4 specialization streams. So the eligibility for getting admission into any of the PG diplomas are any graduate including chartered accountancy, cost accountancy and company secretaryship with 50% marks for general category, 45% for reserved category can take admission in any of the postgraduate diploma programs. The minimum duration is 1 year. It is again semester based system. So, and the maximum duration is 3 years. The program fees for the specialized PG diploma program is 20,000 for the entire program, and this has to be paid while taking admission in the PG diploma program. The benefit of taking admission in PG diploma program is if the student desires to continue for the MBA program, then they can take the benefit of credit transfer and take direct entry into the MBA program and continue with the remaining courses to complete the MBA program. So, if the student is not clear about completing MBA program, he or she will get benefited just by doing the PG diploma program, then that is also fine. But for further learning and for further certification, if the student can have the option of credit transfer and take admission in MBA program also. So this is the broad structure of our any of the PG diploma specialization program. The student has to complete 9 courses. Each course is of 4 credits, and the total credit of the program is 36 courses. So it's a fixed structure. In the first semester there are 5 courses to be done, and in the second semester 4 courses to be completed. So in which there are 2 core courses and 7 specialization courses. So now coming to the unique features of our management programs, either be it be MBA or the PG diploma program or the specialized MBA programs. The very most benefit of joining this program is it is AICTE approved and UGC recognized. Second, it's very the entry into the system is very flexible because there are 2 admission cycles, that is in January and July. So the student can choose according to their convenience in which admission cycle they can take admission, and the admission procedure is completely online. The learner need not visit any study center or regional center or even post their certificates. They can complete the admission in our online platform. Then second, there are exit and entry modular option is there. In case the student desires, they can exit after completing 1 year, 2 semesters, 14 courses, and get the PG diploma in management program, which is a 1 year after 1 year duration and 2 semesters of 14 courses the student has to complete. If he or she desires, then can ask for the PG diploma in management. Then again subsequently after say 1 or 2 years or 3 years, if the student desires, can again come back to the MBA program and complete the remaining courses to get the full MBA degree. Then very unique feature is that its cost. It is very affordable and it is the least expensive MBA program if you compare with any of the comparable universities or even if with the private institutes. And the course contents are up to date. There are 5 specializations. There is complete flexibility in entry, exit, modular system. So there are many benefits. And the teaching learning that takes place in the MBA program is using the multimedia based. So first you have the option either ODL or online. In case of ODL, you get the printed materials. Then you have your television teaching through television. Then you have the counseling option where the student can visit to the nearest study center and get the counseling. Third, we also have digital materials like audio books, and all the course materials are available in an online platform, that is EGNOU, where student can download and study. So there are all the medium of teaching learning are available while completing the MBA program. Then there are 2000 plus study centers across India, and now also there are available study centers in selected international in selected countries also, where the student can conveniently select the study center and complete the program where the counseling session takes place. In case of online MBA, the counseling takes place online. So there is also the best part of this new MBA programs and the new PG diploma programs is that the course content is up to date and the self-learning materials are written by the industry experts, the top academicians from the country, which enhances the employability option, and also it adds on the lifelong learning for the persons who are already employed. Then there is a scope for online and offline mode learner support services, where student can either go to the study centers or they can listen to our Swayamprabha channel based counseling sessions or our Gyan Darshan counseling sessions. So this learner is not bound to go to any specific place or bound to listen to a program during a particular time. They can listen anytime at their convenience. There are few important points that are required to be remembered while completing the MBA program. I request Professor Sukla to kindly highlight on this.
Thank you, madam. The most important unique feature of MBA program is that it's a flexibility. As madam has rightly said, we are following the multi-pronged approach in delivery, and also it is recognized by AICTE, UGC, and in case of the online programs, we are also offering the counseling in online mode. So the students of online programs, they can upload their assignment online, they can attend the counseling sessions online, and also for management programs, the Swayamprabha channel number 19, that is exclusively for the management programs. The students can also attend the sessions online, and the recorded content is also available in our YouTube channel. So the flexibility is a key in delivery of the programs, and along with this, the important point to be remembered is that we are following a continuous evaluation system. That means we are following the concept of the assignment submission and term and examination. In assignment, the weightage is 30%, and for term and examination, the weightage is 70%. But to appear in the term and examination, it is must that the learner has to attempt the assignments and pass the assignment of that particular course. So this is one feature of this continuous evaluation. And other feature is that in MBA programs, students have to go through the project course, and in this project course, the credit is 8 is of 8 credits. That means it has the weightage of 2 courses. And for this project course, the detailed guidelines, it is available in our website. And for this, we are following the 2-stage process. In first step, the students have to submit the synopsis, and once the synopsis, the proposal of the project is approved, then the learner can submit their project report. For this proposal and for project, the learner has flexibility to take guidance from the experts nearby him. If he or she is working, then the seniors from the same company or organization, they can be opted as a guide.
Professor Shukla, I would like to add here that this learners have to submit their synopsis to their respective regional centers, and they can even approach their counselors of the study center to be their guide. So all these things are mentioned in our handbook and prospectus, and they have to ensure that it is not copied and plagiarized, because we find many learners who indulge into these practices are either referred to malpractice, or they take a longer time, because the system of evaluating the synopsis is very tight here. So one cannot escape by just copying or by just doing a very different approach kind of thing. So it is advised that you have to do a sincere project work, because it is equivalent to 2 courses, without which you cannot complete the program on time, and also it gives an unethical practice, because it should not happen in your career also, in your employment this thing also.
Madam, just I would like to add here,
Yeah.
and it will also lead towards the disqualification of the program. If it is found through plagiarism checking that it is copied or pasted, then the students or the learner can be disqualified from the program. And also, I would like to share that if, in case of the MBA online programs, the student can submit the proposals of their project on LMS system. They can upload the proposal on LMS. They need not to go to the regional study centers or regional centers to submit their proposals or projects.
And the learners have to be careful, because during the first semester they have got 7 papers. Then subsequently each semester they have to re-register for that particular semester, in which they have the option of choosing the courses in the 3rd and 4th semester. So there are 2 modes, that is registration and re-registration. So coming to a very important development that has recently taken place is internal credit transfer. Professor Shukla would highlight on that.
Yeah, following the new education policy, we have adopted this internal credit transfer, in which our old students who have not completed due to any reason their MBA programs, they can enroll as fresh in our MBA programs, so that their earned credits of earlier MBA enrollment that can be transferred to our new MBA programs. And the courses have been added. Earlier there were 19 courses in our MBA program, but now it is 28 courses. So the learners have to register in semester wise. That means learners have to register in first semester for first semester courses, second semester for second courses, in the same way.
So all these details are available in our website also, and you can call any of our office to know further details. So with this, we will conclude today's session. Any clarification required, you can contact us. Namaste.
Thank you.